scholars have identified elements of Germanic mythology reaching as far back as Proto-Indo-European mythology. During the modern period, the Romanticist Viking revival re-evoke an interest in the subject matter, and references to Norse mythology may now is recorded in Old Norse, ranging from Icelandic family histories to migration period tales mentioning historic figures such as Attila the Hun. Objects and monuments such as the rock runestone and the Kvinby amulet features runic inscriptions. Texts written in the runic alphabet, the indigenous alphabet of the Germanic peoples, that mention figures and events from Norse mythology. Objects from the archaeological record may also be interpreted as depictions of subjects from Norse mythology, such as amulets of the god Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, found among pagan burials, and small silver female figures interpreted as Valkyries or Disir, beings associated with war, fate, or ancestor cults by way of historical linguistics and comparative mythology. Comparisons to other attested branches of Germanic mythology, such as the Old High German Merseburg incantations, may also lend insight. Wider comparisons to the mythology of other Indo-European peoples by scholars has resulted in the potential reconstruction of far earlier myth. Only a tiny amount of poems and tales survive of the many mythical tales and poems that are presumed to have existed during the Middle Ages, Viking Age, Migration period, and before. Later sources reaching into the modern period, such as a medieval charm recorded as used by the Norwegian woman Ragnhild Tregagos, convicted of witchcraft in Norway in the 14th century, and spells found in the 17th century Icelandic Galdrabrok grimoire also sometimes make references to Norse mythology. Other traces, such as place names bearing the names of gods, may provide further information about deities, such as a potential association between deities based on the placement of location bearing the names, their local popularity, and associations with geological features. Now let's go on to mythology, gods and other beings. Central to accounts of Norse mythology are the plights of the gods and their interaction with various other beings, such as with Jotnar, who may be friends, lovers, foes, or family member of the gods. Numerous gods are mentioned in the source text as evidence share half of his share of the dead with a powerful goddess Freya. She is beautiful, sensual, wears a feathered cloak, and practices Sage. She rides to a battle to choose among the slain and brings her chosen to her afterlife field Folkvanger. human